Please help us welcome Joe.
Joe. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Joe.
How's everybody tonight? You ready? You ready? How many of you have never been to a position of neutrality before? Anybody? Oh, good. Well, first of all, welcome. And second, let me warn you in advance, you're liable to experience us just a little different than other meetings of other fellowships you may have attended. Primary reason is that we intend for you to have a different experience here. What we do here, we've been doing for a lot of years. We just take a look at the suggested instruction for a step or so a week, directly out of this book, and we use this book in Crystal Meth Anonymous. Why? The process described by the authors of this book has been proven to work with addicts of the hopeless variety, addicts to alcohol and other substances. So although we call it a study, that's more so that you get a sense of what's going to go on here. It's not really a teaching, it's a sharing. I'm no guru on this book, but I am an expert on my own experience. So I'll show you how I find that experience in this book. And I'll encourage you to have yours. And if we both do our job, we will share a spiritual experience in this room tonight. How many of you have been here before and witnessed for these folks that happens?
Yep.
So by this show of hands, in 12-step recovery, when we speak of a spiritual experience, we're not talking about something conceptual, we're talking about something experiential. You will feel it. When you do, I'll know. And I'll call it to your attention, because we would cheat you to talk to you about the power we call God without giving you a demonstration of the power. Fair enough? And there may be someone sitting there now tonight saying, how does you know I'm feeling something demonstrate the power of God? Well, it may not if you don't want to believe that way, but you take some things on faith. You came to this room for a reason. In almost every AA group I've ever been in, they read a little portion of chapter 5 before the meeting. Any of you ever been to an AA meeting?
Yeah.
You ever heard that portion of chapter 5 read?
Yeah.
Every time they read this little portion, it says there is one who has all power. That one is?
God.
So if you're feeling something, and I know, did we not demonstrate oneness in this room?
Yes.
There you go. So that's what we're going to do. And then once you have that sensory experience of power, tangible power, now you can decide whether you'd like to go through the process to improve your consciousness, your awareness of being aware of that power in your life. Fair enough?
Yeah.
I tell you all of that because tonight we're looking at steps 10 and 11. So 10 and 11 linked together because it's about using the disciplines, the practice I learned in 4, the practices I learned in my amends step, all the way through 4 through 9. Now I'm going to get disciplined in those practices, so I'm in a conscious walk. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I know over the years people have had meditation meetings and all those things. There's nothing wrong with meditating, saturating, watching your thoughts. But what these guys knew is as alcoholics, we needed to be awake all the time. Because sometimes our mind attacks us.
Yes.
Any of you ever just been going along, all was good? And all of a sudden, for some reason, all was not good.
Yes. Yep.
You didn't have time to run to a meditation or bang a gong. You either had to go right the fuck off or realize that's all illusion and delusion out there anyway.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to look at tonight. So let's start on page 83. And in a lot of rooms of recovery, you'll see these things hung on the wall. Some of them have even gone so far as to say these are the 12 promises. Remember, some drunks did that. They're not the 12 promises. The book is full of promises and conditions. They are the 9th step promises. Why does that matter? Well, because they're going to tell you right away why it matters. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development. What phase?
4 through 9.
If I haven't done any of the shit they did, unlikely that I'll have experienced any of the promises. The promises are the result of a process. If you didn't go through the process and you're trying to claim the promise, you're liable to be frustrated. That's all.
Yep.
We don't want you frustrated.
True.
Okay. All right. So we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. So what does new mean?
Never before.
Unlike anything I've ever experienced before. So although freedom from chemicals was kind of different, it wasn't new. Anyone know what I'm talking about? So what is this new freedom and new happiness I'm all of a sudden experiencing? I'm knowing.
Sobriety.
Freedom from the bondage of myself.
Yeah. How many of you didn't believe in the power we call God, but you did say the prayer because someone told you to say the prayer, and you got to this point, and now you asked to be relieved of the bondage of self, And all of a sudden you are experiencing what the freedom of being free of you, so you're free to be you is. Free of your limiting thoughts about you, so you're free to become a better version of you on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
Anyone else enjoyed that promise?
Yep.
See, it helps if we explain to people, all of us have had some of this to some degree, but because they're states of being, they dissipate quickly if we don't discipline our thought life.
Yeah.
Okay? So then it tells us that we'll not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Why is that?
Because it's our greatest asset.
How many of you have started helping other people?
Yeah.
Didn't you have to level the playing field with them by sharing some of the things you've been through and your experiences with the power? Okay, so all what I thought was a wasted life has now become an asset to help my brothers and sisters.
Yep.
So why would I regret the past?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. So how does one comprehend the state of being serenity? You'd have to experience it, right? What does to know peace mean?
A state of being.
Think about what peace is. Peace is the absence of conflict.
Right.
So to know peace, I've got to live at least for glimpses of no conflict in my thought life.
Right.
Think of the promise of that.
Yes.
Where's my meth addicts? That's a miracle, right?
That's a miracle.
Okay, and meth addicts aren't special, but they're less peaceful than others. I mean, they're not special amongst us. They're all special. You're all fucking special. All right. I realized I could get a sound clip that would be terrible there. Okay. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. So they follow it up with the, no matter how far down. How many of you have been down a ways? Okay. All right, so that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. How many of you have had that?
Yeah.
How many of you have had it come on again in recovery?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How many of you have noticed that all of a sudden the phone rings and someone asks for help, and all of a sudden you go out and help them and it went again?
Yeah.
Did you notice how you didn't call them, they called you?
Yeah.
And we don't believe in God around here.
Right.
Interesting. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Why is that such an important promise? How many of you have been blessed with a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps and working with others? Have you discovered, like the authors, that the world does not cause how we think and feel, rather it reflects how we're thinking and feeling?
Right.
So, if I don't get that promise, that my whole attitude and outlook on life changes, I will suffer mightily.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
True.
So that's a really important promise to strive for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it says, we'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. How many of you didn't really like the word God, didn't really like the whole idea, consider yourself more agnostic, but all of a sudden you started having these promises, so whatever this God thing was, there was some tangible reality manifesting in your life.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That's what it takes. Now we grow in that, right? Okay. So then it says, are these extravagant promises?
Yeah.
They think not, but in fact, for what I was hoping for and what I received, they're pretty fucking extravagant.
Yeah.
But we serve an extravagant power. Right? I wouldn't have even known how to ask for what I've received.
True.
Does that make sense?
It is true.
Okay. All right. So then it says they're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
That's it.
So there was a promise and condition there. Did you catch it?
Yep.
The promises will always materialize. What was the condition? Okay, so the process produces the state of being, or reveals the state of being to us. Yes? What happens if we don't? They will vaporize because they're states of being. Any of you ever had the promises and you were just living in home? And then somebody came in and you're like, motherfucker. So if we allow the attack thought, any of you ever seen someone walk in and you know they walked in just to offend you? Happens. Don't even know them, but they must have done it to you, right? All right. Okay, so this thought brings us to step 10. What thought? Those promises, those states of beings that promise will always materialize if we work for them. And the work is simply inventorying inside myself, right? Power, peace, happiness, a sense of direction. If that's not the experience I'm having, go inward, not outward.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. So if I'm going to continue, when did I start? I learned how to take a personal inventory when they showed me how to do step 4.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to continue to do that. That was a practice. Now it's a discipline. I'm not going to break out paper every time necessarily. I'm going to watch my thoughts, right? We're about on thought life now. Okay, and then I continue to set right new mistakes. When did I learn to do that?
8 and 9.
When I learned to set right old mistakes is when I learned to set right new mistakes. How many of you found out you still made some new mistakes after?
Yes.
How many of you found out that was okay?
Yes.
That was an expectation. How many of you made mistakes that you thought were mistakes and found out later they weren't mistakes? It still reduces ego, doesn't it? Okay, all right, so we vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So vigorously, they wanted to discipline their thought life as they go along. When did they last talk to us about a manner of living? Back to that hopeful chapter, how it works.
63.
The people who do not recover are people who are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living. So now they're going to break down every step in that manner of living, because this is a book that's self-defining. Does that make sense? Okay? So then it goes on to say that we have entered the world of the Spirit. They didn't equivocate, did they? I mean, some of us have. We might have. So they wrote this book to people who had joined the program of recovery, not the fellowship of recovery. So what's it like to enter the world of the Spirit?
Grace, peace, serenity, love, kindness.
Yeah, how many of you just realized that those promises, at least some of them, were coming true in your life and you hadn't done anything to work for them?
Yeah.
They just came on the horizon.
Yeah.
Not regretting the past or wishing to shut the door out, losing interest in selfish things and gain interest in... How many of you just started showing up for your meetings and you were able to make commitments and keep commitments and you had never been able to do that before?
Yeah.
There you go. That's what it's like to enter the world of the Spirit. Okay? All right, so then it says that our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So understanding of what? Effectiveness at what? Notice how the steps tell us that they insinuate that we're going to grow in understanding, because the step always says, as I understood them, and they put it in italics. So the God I understood yesterday is not the God I understand today, because it's an unfolding experience. That's not conceptual, it's experiential. It's subject to my experience, not the object of my belief.
Right.
So the more I grow in consciousness, the more my steps are informed by the power rather than the world.
Yep.
Any of you had that experience?
Yes.
If you haven't, it's here for everybody. Right? Okay. All right. So this is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Well, that's a long time. So when we said this prayer, our will and our life over, you know, our life isn't so much what's out there or what's back there. Our life is right here, right now. Am I free of me right here, right now? Or am I still afraid to be me? Does it make sense? Okay. All right. So continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. If I'm going to continue, I must have started. When did I start?
Step 4.
Sean always says that. I contend that in step 4, I realized that's what my thoughts were showing me. But I know that all my life I could spot selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear in you. I just thought it was yours. I didn't know that I was looking at you through the lens of my thoughts or through my hearing.
Right.
So, from another book, how can you see the speck in your brother's eye when you can't see the plank in your own eye? Better you should remove the plank from your eye so you can better see to help your brother. So the plank in my eye is the perspective about the situation. And if I don't get that out of the way, I'm always going to misjudge. And my judgment of you has no impact on you. It kills me.
Right.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then it says, when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. So what's that look like? First of all, they are going to crop up. Yeah, because it didn't say if they crop up. When. Right?
Right.
And so when we say we're going to ask God, what are we talking about? Tangible power from within. This is why I keep telling you guys, if we don't introduce you to tangible power in 2, you'll never do the rest of the process.
Right.
Because no one seeks to improve awareness of being aware of a concept. But if I know every time I ask this tangible power, comfort me, calm me, slow me down, give me the power to be kinder than I feel, and I receive it, I will grow in consciousness.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. So at first I might have to call a sponsor or a spiritual advisor and talk to him. I always use the 10-minute rule. If you're still chewing on it for 10 minutes, call somebody. Otherwise, work it out with God. Then you're going to learn what a conscious walk is, what the prayer and meditation is they're talking about.
Right.
Not what you've heard of other people say, what they're talking about.
Right.
Pray ceaselessly. Make sense?
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm admitting dependence. I'm dependent by nature. How did I get here? Joe, you're chemically dependent. So So now I've replaced that dependency on something tangible, something real, not something synthetic. I can grow in consciousness of it. I can up my doses without wrecking the house. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right. So, and then we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So they've just told us the principles we're going to practice in all our affairs that they talk about in 12. And over the years, another book was written, and people think it's that long list, but it's not. That's one guy's opinion of what it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what they want you to know is experientially, the practices I'm going to practice, the principles I'm going to practice is watch, ask, discuss, turn. On the fly. Right. This book was written 15 years before. They didn't know the other book was even going to be written yet.
Right.
So you know. Okay. All right, so then it says, love and tolerance of others is our code. Love what? Tolerate what?
The person tolerates
Love the person, tolerate their behavior, because I'm tired of making amends.
And conversely, how many of you had such a hard time you're really hard on yourself?
Sure.
And ended up being a doormat for other people, and then you were mad at them. So now you got resentment towards you, resentment towards... Anyone ever had any of that shit going on? Any of you thought, well, you know what, if they don't like me, maybe I could act in a way that they will like me. Now I don't like me, I'm acting in an inauthentic way, so you'll like me, you still don't like me, and now I really don't like me. That ever happen?
Yeah.
So either way, what we need to do is get discipline in our thought life. All of that nonsense is a lie.
Right.
Okay? Love the people, tolerate the symptoms of their malady, as I hope you will of mine when they manifest, and they will. And that's our code. Did you know we had a code? You got to know we have a code. You can't get into the secret meetings if you don't know the code.
The
Okay.
handshake, too.
Yeah, we do. Okay. So now here's a set of promises. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. How many of you had that experience, didn't ever really think about what a miracle that was? Every day in your addiction, you just wanted to not do it. Knew you were going to do it, just wanted to not do it. And then have some period of time, not only did you not do it, didn't want to do it. Didn't even think about wanting to do it.
Right.
For this time, by this time, sanity will have returned. So if sanity will have returned, what was insanity?
Taking a drink thinking you were not okay.
The obvious thing is, yeah, the insanity of the first drink, but how about just living and living miserably because you weren't drinking?
Yeah.
I had an appalling lack of perspective. The inability to think clearly because I was trying to decipher everything in guess what was coming forward or in light of a past act.
Right.
Okay. We'll seldom be interested in liquor if tempted will recoil as from a hot flame. So that's a promise you want to grab, you heroin addicts especially. You guys got to stay busy when you first get it. I know, I've had the experience. If we don't stay busy, our mind goes to what our body needs. And all I want you to understand is the promise here is I'll seldom be tempted, but if tempted, I'll recoil as from a hot flame. It's summer in Phoenix. Has anyone accidentally leaned on their car? Did you notice no one had to say, don't lean on that car, that motherfucker's hot? No, we recoil. That's what they promise you regarding your addiction, guys. and it's all about getting busy. Okay? And it always works. I can promise you out of my own experience. Okay? We react sanely and normally. We'll find this has happened automatically. We'll see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. So I don't know if you have an evolving idea, an attitude about liquor, but eventually we realize that liquor is just a symptom. That's what I used to get my ease and comfort until I found a better source of ease and comfort in the world. Anyone else? And other people use it, and that's okay. Okay, so that's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. So that's the name of this meeting, position of neutrality. For my scientific minds, what's it feel like to be placed in a position of neutrality?
Totally unaffected by anything.
Yeah, and we at the cellular level are action-reaction. It is our nature to react to anything coming at us.
Right.
How many of you have found that you have the power to be kinder than you feel like being?
Yeah.
How many of you found you have the power to love the unlovely?
Yeah.
See right through the mess, right to the message. How many of you found that you can tolerate the intolerable? You can walk through difficult circumstances because you know you're going through it for a purpose. What is that but a power greater than you walking through you, working through you? Does it make sense? Okay. So, as long as I'm feeling safe and protected, then I'm in the ease and comfort. Does that make sense? And if I'm not, then I would want to check my spiritual status. Does it make sense? Okay, so we've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. So what's the problem? The problem is perception, and it's probably driven by fear. So wherever you are in the spectrum, you know, it may be a manifestation of self that's a problem in the beginning, but eventually fear drives all of that, right? Fear drives doubt and all those things. Does it make sense? So that problem has been removed to the extent that we're disciplining our thought life. That's the promise, yeah? How many of you have had that promise revealed to you? Yeah. How many of you still fall short from time to time? Yeah, so that's why it's a manner of living. Okay. All right, so it does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. So now they're telling you pretty clearly it has something to do with fear, aren't they? Fight or flight.
Right.
Okay? So that's our experience. So if you don't agree with them, what they're telling you is if you haven't done what we did, it's unlikely you've received what we are claiming. So it's our experience. If you haven't had that experience, you might want to look at chapter 5. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. They did not say paths. They said path.
Right.
Don't argue with the dead people, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So if I wanted to know if I was in fit spiritual condition, what might I do? Well, you probably wouldn't have to read more than the very first promise. Am I fighting anything or anyone? If I am, there's something the matter with my spiritual status. Go in. Because I walk in victory. I don't have to fight. That fight's won. Understand what I'm saying? Okay. All right, so it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. How many of you discovered that? We're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. Wait, why not? Did you notice they never tried to cure our addiction?
Nope.
Because that's a symptom, dude. Let's look at your spiritual condition.
Right.
I got a human condition that guarantees I'll be selfish if I don't get access to a power greater than me. Because I have an addiction, on top of that, it's infinitely grave for me.
Right.
Make sense? What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. Which day?
Every day.
So did you know that they've described for us what the vision of God's will is?
Yes.
Pretty much what they tell you is just whatever's going on, but what, you know, we're always going to ask, how can I best serve thee? Thy will be done. Show me what you're showing me.
Right.
Right? Okay. So then they're going to say, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. How many of you do not talk in King James language? Almost everyone but Sean. So if you don't talk in King James language, the point is don't talk in King James language. The power knows how you talk. So talk to the power the way you talk to the power, but remember you're looking for power that's inside you. You're not trying to control externals, yeah? Okay, and notice they put the not mine in italics.
Right.
Because by 11th-step consciousness, that delusion's gone away. God's will has no opposite. There's just God's will and my disagreement with it.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Okay. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. When? So now you see how they're talking to the earnestness about how their walk is conscious. You understand what they say? Every time that I'm disturbed, I go inward. We're going to get into that discipline now. So we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. So how many of you didn't like the idea of turning your will and your life over because you didn't want to turn your will over even if you weren't even sure what the hell that meant? Okay, God doesn't want your will. It's just you'll suffer less if you'll align it with what's going on. You cannot help anything you're judging. So get on board. You're probably going to be used as a change agent. It's probably disturbing to someone else too. But until you go in a non-judgmental way, love goes in without a record of wrong. Does that make sense? Some of you are feeling that. Who felt that? That's the power. That's not coming from the podium. Emanating in you. Okay. All right. So much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. So again, for all my scholarly people, any of you get troubled by this power having all the knowledge? I'm pretty educated. That bothered me. How many of you went and got a lot of education and found out the more education you got, the less you really knew? But now you knew how little you knew.
PhD?
I was looking right at you, brother. If we have carefully followed directions, we've begun to sense the flow of His Spirit in us. See how they're not caging that in any? They're talking about the tangible experience of the power. So what's it feel like to sense the flow of His Spirit into us?
Spiritual creation.
Who felt whatever we felt a minute ago?
Yeah.
It's that simple. That sense of that's the flow. That's not coming from the speaker. That inspiration is spiritual communication. Spirit talks to spirit. And that in you can be improved. The consciousness of that can be improved, and that spirit will inform your steps. It will empower your steps. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction. This is tangible. It's more logical to believe in this power than not. The great agnostic Bill Wilson wrote a whole book telling you it's more logical to believe than not to believe based on our experience.
Right.
Does that make sense? Okay. To some extent, we become God conscious. So what is God conscious? Awareness of being aware of this power we call God working in and through me. And when I come in contact with you and we start talking about it, I feel you, you feel me, and now it's everywhere. How many of you have heard somebody's second step, third step, fifth step, and felt them?
Oh, yeah.
So to some extent, we become God conscious. How many of you knew something about them that was troubling them and shared it with them and amazed them?
Yes.
If you do enough of it, it'll happen to you.
Sure.
Okay. All right. To some extent, you become God conscious. And there's more.
Yes.
Okay. So we've begun to develop this vital sixth sense. A lot of people think that's conceptual. No, it's not. When we go up to all the creative people I've ever met, one thing, you start talking to them, you go, I feel you. Ever hear them say that? Yeah. Now, I think some of them can, and I think some of them are full of shit. But the ones who can, we know, don't we? Because I'll help you carry your burdens, right? You'll help me carry my burdens, and we won't have to speak them, we'll just feel them. Who's feeling that? Yeah. That's the power we call God around here. Okay. All right, so, but we must go further, and that means more action. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. What does it mean we're using it constantly?
All the time.
It's a conscious walk, guys. Don't believe anything you've ever heard. Don't let some drunk in the room read your book. Believe these drunks, not those drunks.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Not picking on anybody. We all just repeat shit because it makes us feel smart, but we haven't. No one else ever done that shit? Sound like a fucking Barrett.
Yeah,
Want a cracker? Yeah, I want a cracker. Find out what it means. If you let someone else read your book for you, what you've done is you've given them your mind and you're letting them think for you. Don't do that.
Right.
You are a gift to the world as an authentic you. Learn to think for yourself. I used to be on all our walls, think, think, think. We want you to wake up first. Okay. So it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. So what is the proper attitude for prayer and meditation?
Quietness.
Honestly want to and willing to make the effort. Right? But they said they laid this simple spiritual kit at my feet and I picked it up. This I did because I honestly wanted to and was willing to make the effort. It will not work for you unless you do honestly want to and are willing to make the effort, because what's the first step in recovery? We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves. And I can't do that based on a lie.
Right.
So those of you that are biblical scholars, the day is coming and indeed is now come that you must worship in spirit and in truth. You people worship what you do not know, but we the chosen, we worship what we do know.
Right.
Does that make sense? And I know that some people get squishy when I go biblical, but remember our original fellowship, half were biblical, half were the other. We're going to talk to everybody here. If that gets your knickers in a knot, remember, spirit just recognizes spirit. If it's troubling you, ask why. Okay? All right, so it'd be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Would you like some? Okay. So what they said, now look, they've shifted tense. Earlier they were talking in past tense, now they're talking in present tense. So this is the manner of living. So when we retire at night, we constructively review our day.
Yep.
Well, that'd be change, wouldn't it?
Yep.
How many of you, when you retire at night, you destructively review your day? Or destructively review someone else's day? Or maybe just try and cover it up? Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Now, they told me to look for that stuff all day long and admit promptly when I was wrong, and now they got me doing it at the end of the day.
Yep.
I guess they were thinking that progress, not perfection thing was going to be needed for the likes of me, huh? How many of you found out you got to the end of the day and you hadn't kept up? Okay, so they knew that was going to happen, so don't let anyone get, you know what I mean? This is between you and the power now. Okay, so then it says, do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? How many of you are working with other people and have had them work up to where they're in these steps? So a few of you, did you get your new ones to call you every day for 30 days? Some of us get them to call us every day for 30 days and discuss their review, because one of the things you learn over time is that they'll either do it and keep doing it, or that you won't hear from them after a while because they weren't ever doing it. But you know what happens for sure? If you got enough of them calling you every night, you'll do yours. How many of you have found that the people you're sponsoring kick you through your steps? Of course they do. We're linked, man. Okay. All right, so what could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, what we could pack into the stream of life? All those question marks are to go inward if you find that you're disturbed, and see if you've got something that's blocking you off. Because where's the power found? Deep down inside. And so how do we find it? Sometimes we have to search fearlessly. That might happen at the end of the night just to quiet your mind. So this is just that practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. So how many of you, as you were growing, started to get the persona of one of those guys that really knew his shit? And then you made mistakes and you didn't want to cop to him. So how many of you, when you had to start owning your humanity to people who knew you, you found out that you could then own your humanity to all humanity eventually? You're not really a very good witness if you can't tell them who you really are versus who you want them to think you are. You know, and not picking on you, I get benefit by witnessing to you, because whatever you come in here needing, it flows through me to you. And so I get a hit of it on the way by, but if I'm not authentic, then it's, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like cutting your own dope, guys. It's not as logical as we think. Any of you ever done that shit and go, boy, I wish I hadn't done that shit. I was really happy I had more, but fuck this now. Some of them have done it, Sean. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So now I'm coming to expect answers. Power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction. Sometimes I already have the answer I want to employ, and sometimes I just get a confirmation. Sometimes I already have it, and the answer is one I want to argue with or try and improve upon. And sometimes I have no earthly idea, and all of a sudden what used to baffle me, all of a sudden I see a way. Any of you ever had that happen? Okay. Okay, so on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. So they are talking about, as soon as we wake up, our first conscious moment. How many of you have discovered, because they went from ask forgiveness and go to sleep to on awakening, consider our plans, how many of you have discovered that overnight you got some downloads?
Oh yeah, live.
How many of you discovered if you didn't do something with them right away, they went away as soon as you did anything physical?
Yep.
Okay, so that's one of the little things they learned, is sometimes that spiritual revelation that comes in the dream state, you need to do something to record it right away. Bill wrote this whole book. He'd wake up, he'd have like this whole vision of what the book said, and he'd write it down, and that's what we're still reading today. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So he's not writing about shit he doesn't know. He's writing about stuff he did, and we're benefiting from it. Give freely of what you find and join us, and surely you'll meet some of us as we trudge the road of happiness. But that's in the fellowship of the Spirit, not the fellowship of the whole. So don't cheat yourself by not doing it. They never say, here are the meetings we attended, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We lead people to believe that's true, but that's not what it says. And they've told us we're not going to get the promise if we don't go through the process. It's not a rule, it's just enlightened self-interest to share the good news. Yeah? Okay, so on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. So if I'm going to ask this tangible power to direct my thinking, this is a prayer for you guys with more agnostic tendencies. Ask that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. So God, please direct my thinking, especially to be divorced from selfish, self-pity, self-seeking motives. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And see if your mind doesn't change. There's other promises in the ninth step, ask to be shown the way of patience, kindness, tolerance, and love. Every time you're disturbed, if you'll just ask for power to see that, you'll have the power to be that.
Right.
Does it make sense? Okay. So under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. How many of you have gone to the rooms where they say, oh, don't go into your mind alone? Nonsense. You have the very mind God gave you to use. We'd like for you to wake up first and then think. Yep. Don't let other people think for you. We need you, the authentic you. We don't want to clone you. We want you. Come as you are. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. So our whole life is lived out between our ears and our thought life. And so if we're on a higher plane, then we're in a whole lot less disturbance. Yes? A lot less conflict way up there.
Mm-hmm. We fuck up less, too.
Yeah, no traffic.
Yeah.
In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. That ever happen to anyone?
Yeah.
So they're talking to you about what their conscious walk looked like. So indecision isn't a problem in itself. It's whether I stay stuck or admit to my indecision. Who do I admit my indecision to?
God.
To the power within. I'm not going to do that if I don't know it to be tangible power, am I?
Right.
Okay. So then it says that we may not be able to determine which course to take. So what they say is here we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision. So they've told you what they ask, when they ask, and what they receive. So on the fly, as they're going out into their day, God inspire me, and it will come to me as an intuitive thought or decision. It will inform my steps. Does that make sense? How many of you had that happen and didn't even know you were that disciplined?
Yeah.
Because God doesn't make too hard terms for those who earnestly seek. You see why they knew that? Okay. All right, so we relax and take it easy. Why did they learn that? Because sometimes I know what I want to do and I know what I should do, and they are not in alignment.
Yeah.
Thus my disturbance.
Yep.
And so then I ask for guidance and direction, I receive guidance and direction, and then I try and push it down and far inside because I know what I intended to do.
Right.
So it's better to not have an expectation of what's coming and just move in expectation as I'm informed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's going to be good, but I won't put too much form to it. Yeah? Okay. All right, so we don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. How many of you have had that happen?
Yeah.
Just quit fighting with the way things were, walked right through it. How many of you went through some really, really difficult times in your life? Like really sucked, saw no way out. And yet here you are. So what happened? We got through it, right? Now that doesn't mean the next time that something really difficult comes, I'm not going to have to remind myself that I went through that and here I am. But if I will do that up here, I won't fight me as much. Does that make sense? It's more logical to believe than not to believe. Your own experience should prove it to you through you. Yes? Okay. All right. So what used to be the hunch of the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Claim that promise. You'll struggle less. For me, a guy like me, it is my nature to be drunk or miserable or both. To be neither a high percentage of the time is a miracle.
Yes.
And that's what I'm telling you these people promise, and that's what I'm telling you many of us walk in. Okay? Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable we're going to be inspired at all times. Why did they tell us that? That's a bummer. Not every promise warms the cockles of your heart. But there's going to be a time when I'm walking in promise and it doesn't feel like promise. Because sometimes preparation sucks ass.
Yeah.
But it's stripping away my egoic self and preparing me for something. Hell, our addiction taught us that. Okay. So we might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. How many of you have had absurd actions and ideas? Now see, that shouldn't bother us because we're addicts. We are freaking known by our absurd actions and ideas. So some spiritual absurd actions shouldn't trouble us, but they will. How many of you have gotten an inspiration? I got to call this person. I haven't talked to them in years, and I got to call. Did you call them and find out you needed to talk to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It happens. Okay. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. So they move in inspiration. They struggle less. That whole stream of life thing they're talking about is a stream of consciousness in which they sail. Okay. So we usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that would be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially from freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. So you guys know what they're talking about there? It says we're careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. So how many, when you were brand new, started wishing that your probation, your parole, your pending charges, your suspended license, all that shit would just go away? How many of you just got empowered to walk through all of it, whatever it was?
Yep.
Did you notice as you walked through it, your fear went away, your remorse went away, your hopelessness went away? See, the difficulties I'm experiencing are just being projected out on all those obstacles. Those obstacles were my path to take away my difficulties. All I needed was power to carry it out. Some of you are feeling that. Who's feeling that? Okay. Still feeling it, aren't you? That's the power we call God. We improve consciousness of that. Awareness of being aware. Okay. All right. So many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. So did my explanation help you see why? Easily, because what I thought was the problem was not the problem. The problem was the path, right? I needed to walk through the path to strip away the problem I didn't know I had.
Right.
Okay. All right, so if circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. So how would I know if circumstances warrant?
You'd have a wife. Sorry. Don't have one.
That's pretty good. typically, if you do have a wife and you don't wake up with someone else's wife, and I don't think that's where Sean was going, but that's where I go when I hear that stuff. We're better received if they ask.
Yes. Yeah.
If they see a changed nature and call how did your nature change? Then it's an opportunity for me to honor my third step. Because I agreed to give God the credit if He took away my difficulties. Sometimes people see me differently because they feel me differently. They don't know what they're seeing, but when they ask, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up. Oh, yeah, God did that. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so if we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also.
Yep.
And if not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. So they don't care how you start your prayer and meditation regimen, but you got to start somewhere. They've given you a suggested way, and as you grow in the Spirit, you'll do it more often. And as you really grow in dependence on the power rather than dependence on the world, you'll find you do it all the time. Sometimes people ask me, what's it look like to be in constant prayer and meditation? You've been watching it for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so there are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Notice they said where, not that. There's religious people that are sitting in churches or whatever, and they don't know what their book says either. The same way there's people in recovery who don't know what our book says. So it's important that you inform yourself through the through the interpreter, and not same as we suggest here. But see where they're right, because confirmation school. Okay. Make use of what they offer. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. That ever happen?
Yep.
And ask for the right thought or action. So now it's on the fly. Feeling agitation, feeling doubt.
Right.
Inspire me, show me, whatever, right? Okay, so we constantly remind ourselves that we're no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Notice how there's no more not mine. That level of consciousness has stripped away the delusion that there is a will apart from God's. It's only my disagreement with it, so empower me, show me, move me. Make sense? Okay, we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. So claim the efficiency. You'll probably notice the efficiency more than you will the disappearing anxiety. But other people will notice that you're less anxious. They'll call it to your attention, give you an opportunity to witness to the power that took away your difficulty. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do not tire so easily, for we're no longer burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. So what works? Prayer and meditation and the power we call God works. Does it make sense? Okay. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. So what is the simple way they just outlined?
Pray, meditate, pray.
Pray, meditate, pray. Pause when agitated or doubtful. Pray, meditate, pray. In other words, pray ceaselessly. Does that make sense? Okay. That's not all. There's action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. See you in a week.